Why do I talk about him? He was from Israel originally, and he lived in France. That action that I just say about that he jumped, okay, to end, delete his life, to finish his life, was really traumatic for many of his fans. And I can say that even today, people are still asking the question, what really happened to him? What was the reason why he went to the extreme? And what is quite shocking is he didn't happen to do that once. He did that before, okay? He did that action before. But the first time, he was lucky enough, he didn't pass, okay? When you read his story later, because I watched a documentary about him, what they say is, if I remember exactly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, for those who know his story, his mother and his father were survivors of the Shoah, the concentration camp of Jewish people, okay? They were survivors. So I don't know if the mother was already pregnant of him when they came out of this place. They were rescued from this place. But I know that she was already pregnant at the place where it was like a refugee camp, I will say. It was a temporary place by the time they were creating the state of Israel. So I think the place was it was probably Palestine, if I'm not wrong. And they were in a waiting situation to enter now to the new state of Israel at the time. So there were many people. So she was pregnant of him there. I don't know if she gave birth to him to that place, that temporary place. I don't really remember. But they end up going to the state of Israel later on. And the child who was born, who was actually migrant, didn't speak for a while. I think he started speaking maybe age of 5 or 4, if I remember, or 5. But all this time, he wasn't making any word from his mouth. That was very worrying the parent at the time. But then he suddenly speak when he saw a vendor of ice cream. And the first word he said was, ice cream, because he was clearly excited to see the vendor of ice cream, and he wanted the ice cream like every little child. And then later on, he had this voice of singing, this capacity. People know him for his voice. He has a very special, strong capacity voice. And his dream was to go to America because he was already going to America. He was traveling to sing, and then he happened to meet some French singer who gave him the opportunity they gave him the opportunity to go to France and sing. And he wasn't speaking a little word in French, but then he was very gifted. Okay, he had very famous song, still today, masterpiece song that he sung at the time, okay? But his action of jumping, you know what I mean? I won't say the word here. So later on, I don't know what happened. So he did a first attempt before where he tried to jump, okay? And I don't like to say this word because it's very sensitive words and it's human. And it was a person who had family. And he did that attempt before. And he didn't pass, thanks God. But he had, it was in a hotel. I think he was upset about something. I think he was upset about a managing situation about the way someone that he trusted managed his money and his career. I don't know, something like that. And he was so upset that he did that. Okay, but it was the extreme. It was the extreme, and then in the documentary they say that his family called him because he was often in contact with his family. Yeah, he was in contact with his family often. And then they say that the family called, and then the family called him, and then they say that they told him that they know what he has, that they have psychologists in their country who are treating a situation of people who went to concentration camp and things like that. So when I heard that, it made me think a lot. I was like, they have psychologists in Israel, if I understood the documentary well, that were helping people to heal after such a big traumatic event in their life. Concentration camps, Holocaust, Shoah, however you call it, was very traumatic. But think about it. We, as black, we were in slavery. We were in colonization. We were in apartheid. The question I have is like, have we ever had psychologists for nation, for community, who help the people to heal? You see what I mean? There is something I want, because something that I've learned when they say that in the documentary, I realize that there is so many things we have never been really honest on, like really been like talking about the situation. And slavery, it wasn't done in it took a long time, okay, for decades. And what about colonization? We only have our independence, like in the French African War, for example. We only have our because they are not for independence. We only have independence in 1960, and still today we are struggling with the colonization in our psychological, I don't know how to say that, even in our culture, in our way to think. We are still now, and like I say, I include myself, but I see that, we have been, because even in my video I talk about how in public school and how African parents in general, the way they discipline the children, it's scary. The way teacher in public school discipline people, it's scary. It's scary. They beat kids. They traumatize kids in school. I have stories there in my channel, how the teacher had fun beating, torturing kids in classroom. Okay? And for a long time I've been thinking, what is this situation of making people feeling so happy, comfortable, torturing children? And then when you listen to your parent, you heard that they went through the same process when they were young. They were beating in classroom with so much violence. And then when you look again, you see more and you dig more and you find out that the colonizer were doing that already to people. So it has been passed from the colonizer to the people, to the point where you have people, Black African, who even say that The only way, I remember I had a teacher who said that the only way a black student can understand is to be beaten. It's trauma. It's trauma, and the trauma has been passed to another generation. And what I want to say is not that I want to blame or accuse a country, but what I want to say is, if people in South Africa do not work on the trauma of the apartheid now, the generation will have to live that also, because we who have been kind of independent from the colonization, we are still struggling today. From 1960, we are in 2020, 22, 24 today. They got the apartheid because I still believe that apartheid is still working there in a way. But it's only in 1990 that they just got the apartheid like officially fall. But that's on the paper, because the people who are controlling the country are not the black. Okay? But how you see the way they view the other African, that's why you worry that what is wrong here? If they don't work on that situation of apartheid, the trauma of apartheid, it will be passed to the other generation. So when I talk that story, when I watched that story of this singer, I realized that the situation is not something that we should take lightly. Every trauma needs to be addressed. Every trauma needs to be addressed. When we always say, oh no, we are strong, we are lions. Yeah, you know what? It's okay to say that. But the truth is we are not lions. The truth is we are still struggling. How can you understand that? You have another African who hate each other. You are African. We are the only continent who take the borders like in a way, like seriously. You go to Europe, they have the European Union. Okay? You have European Union. They have what they call the visa Schengen. So you can go to a country in another country in Europe. In Africa, it's like, no. I mean, I understand, and it's very important to protect the people of the country. When the immigration is too high, is higher than the population in the country. This is why it's become, because there is a certain I don't know how to say that. There are regulations. There is a number of people who should enter a country for the country to be safe. But when that number is higher, like in my country, the immigrants are higher than the population itself. This is very scary.